So now we're going to talk about scale of analysis. So we've already talked about scale, which is the relationship between the portion of Earth being studied and Earth as a whole. So if we look at a map of the world, like the one on the left, we're looking at a global scale. But if we're looking at a map of a particular country, like the United States, we're looking at a national or a country scale. If we were looking at a map of Europe, we would be looking at a continental scale. Scale is literally what we are looking at. Are we looking at a country? Are we looking at a continent? Are we looking at the whole world? Are we looking at a region or even a state or a city? Now, scale of analysis is something a little different. So scale of analysis is the spatial extent to what is being studied. What is the data being compared between? So is the data varying between continents or countries? Is the data being compared between states? Or is it not being compared between any entity at all? It doesn't have any confined borders here. So look at the cartogram on the left. What's the data being compared between? It's being compared between nations, countries. So it's a national, or you could say country, scale of analysis. What about the one on the right? That is a national scale because we're looking at a country. But what is the scale of analysis? What is the data being compared between? Well, the data is being compared between, it varies between states. So you could say it's a state scale of analysis. Another term you could use is subnational scale of analysis. The prefix sub means below, so it just means below national. We're going to do a lot of practice with this. So here we have a map. It just shows population of one of the hemispheres, not even the entire hemisphere, but just a little region of it. So what is the scale? The scale is regional because we're looking at a region of the world. What is the scale of analysis? What is the data being compared between? Well, the data is being compared between different countries. So it's a country scale of analysis. The data varies between Brazil and Mexico and America and Canada and Peru and Ecuador and Argentina and Bolivia. It all varies between the countries. It doesn't go any more in depth than that. We can't see anything between the individual states of the United States. We just see something for the country as a whole. And College Board may ask you that. They may ask you just what is something that the map shows. And an answer choice could be it shows that the population in X country is the same everywhere. That's not true because we're looking at a national scale of analysis. We're not looking inside the countries. We're looking at the country as a whole. All right, here's another one. We're looking at the world, so that's a global scale. Now, what is the scale of analysis? It varies between countries. Again, it's just at a global scale, so it's still national and country. All right, here we're looking at a map of climate regions of Africa, and I boxed regions for a reason. We are looking at a continent, the continent of Africa, so that is our scale. And then what is our scale of analysis? Well, sometimes the title or the legend or the citation of a map is going to help us with this, and in this case, it's our title. It says major climate regions. We're comparing different set regions within Africa. So this is a regional scale of analysis. We're comparing reference data, not really quantitative data, more qualitative data. We're comparing where are the rainforests in Africa, what climate zones are in Egypt compared to Nigeria or South Africa. Egypt is all desert, while South Africa has a very, very small portion of the country being a desert. In a tropical desert. It has a lot of subtropical desert, but not a lot of tropical desert. Egypt's more tropical desert. That's a difference there. Nigeria is tropical. It has rainforest, though, but it also has grasslands and semi-arid climate areas in the north. So that's what we're comparing. We're comparing the climate zones and where they're located within Africa here. We're not comparing them exactly between the countries because the countries have multiple climate zones here, and the climate zones stretch across multiple countries as well. All right, here we're looking at a map of the United Kingdom. We're looking at different areas within the United Kingdom. So the scale is national because the United Kingdom is a country, and then the scale of analysis here is regional and subnational, whichever one works for you. I would say on the AP exam, subnational would probably be the best answer on an FRQ, but on the MCQ, they would probably say regional. So that's why I put both here. So England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, those are all regions within the United Kingdom. They're not country. A lot of you would probably say, that they're countries, but a country is not composed of other countries. A country is composed of cities and towns and sometimes states and provinces. Like America has states, Canada has provinces, France has administrative regions. In the UK's case, they're just different regions of the country. Wales is a region, Scotland is a region, England is a region, and Northern Ireland is a region as well. So when we're looking at a map comparing population between them, that's a regional scale of analysis. Subnational also works because these different regions are smaller than the country. Here's another one. We're looking at a map of China, which is a country, so it's a national scale. And then we're looking at the rankings between major cities in Nigeria. Which ones are the biggest cities, the top 10 biggest cities in the countries? What's the population within those cities? And what's also the disposable income per person? We have a lot of different variables here in our data, but we're still comparing the data between cities, 10 cities. So what's the scale of analysis? It is cities, because the data varies per city. All right, here's another one. We're looking at a map of the world, so we're looking at a global scale. And then what's the scale of analysis here? Now here's a hint. Is the data being held within certain borders? Is it being compared between certain districts or regions? Not really. Is it being compared between countries? No. What is it being compared between? It's not being contained, that was the word, to any specific entity. So it's a global scale of analysis as well. Most of the time, you'll see global scale of analysis when dealing with heat maps like this. A lot of times dealing with climate or temperature or rainfall. You don't typically see this without a heat map. You don't see it really with choropleth maps. You don't see it with dot distributions as much. That does happen, but heat maps are sometimes the best. This is also a proportional symbol map, and that really only works because the data isn't going to be spread out all over every single continent. You can see the clusters and dispersals very easily with the symbols here. But when you make all the countries really small compared to having a map of just one single country, if you have a lot of symbols, it's going to be very, very confusing to read. Like, I can't really read what's happening in Europe because there's so many symbols in the way. So that's kind of a disadvantage to using a proportional symbol map for a global scale. All right, here we don't have a map, we have a chart. So the title, always important. So we're looking at GDP across the globe, which is our scale, because we're looking at areas around the globe. And then the key helps us with our scale of analysis here. So we're comparing data between Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Those are all continents, so that's a continental scale of analysis. It doesn't matter what the data is. It doesn't matter when they're recording it, how they're recording it, how it'll change, how it has changed. It just matters what the data is being in between. We don't know what's happening inside Asia. We don't know where this GDP is concentrated. We don't know where GDP is low in Europe. We just know that this is the share of GDP as a percentage of the world over the past 2,000 years. That's it. Okay, here's another one, more of a large-scale data set here compared to the world. We have a specific state in the United States, so that's our scale. You could also say subnational as well because it's smaller than the country. And then what's the data showing? It's showing distribution of blueberry production in Maine. The data is not being compared between counties because some counties have different data within them. So like Hancock County has both intensive and moderate production. If this was a county scale of analysis, Hancock would be one or the other. It wouldn't have both data sets here present on the map. Yeah, I lost my train of thought for a second. And look at Washington. Sometimes it has no production, and then it has intensive production as well. So we're getting a little more specific than the counties. So I would just say that's a local scale of analysis. We're comparing the production between local areas because sometimes there's places in Maine where there's a lot of blueberry production. The more north you get, I kind of see that there's a lot more production, especially intensive production. But the more south you get, there's a little less production, but it's more moderate production here. And that varies depending on the local areas. Okay, here's another one. So we're looking at the South, which is a region, is a subnational region. So it would be regional scale. Subnational could work as well. And then the scale of analysis. Is this local? Yeah. On a multiple choice question, local would probably be the answer here. But on an FRQ, they're not going to want you to say local because they want to distinguish between the students getting a 4 and the students getting a 5 on the AP exam. Students getting a 4 would probably put local. Students getting a 5 would say county because the data is being compared between the different counties of the United States here. You can get more specific than county, and that's when I would say local is the best answer here. But it's being compared between the counties. We can see here the population change between the different counties in Louisiana and Arkansas and Oklahoma. We can't get any more specific than that, though. All right, here's another one. We're looking at a state, again, this time California. So our scale is state, and then our scale of analysis is going to be county again, because we're comparing the data, the engineering job listings, between the different counties. We can see that there's not a lot of engineering jobs in the northern counties, but in the southern coastal counties particularly, there's a lot of job growth there. All right, here's another one that's not a map. We're looking at, looks like different states within the United States. Yeah, these are all United States data. So our scale is country. We're not really looking at a specific region here. California and New York are on opposite sides of the country, so rules out regional. And then the scale of analysis. It looks like we're just comparing data between states, nothing more specific than that. So the scale of analysis is state, or you could say subnational. Sub means below. So if it's below national, it means below the country, smaller than the country, like New York is smaller than United States. All right, here's another one. I underlined and boxed another thing because that could be important. So we're looking at Boston neighborhoods. First things first, Boston is a city. So we're looking at a map of a city. So city is our scale. And then what is the scale of analysis? Well, it tells us that the data is by census tract. That's the scale of analysis because the data is varying and can be compared by the census tracts. Now, what are census tracts? You may have never heard of that before. Census tracts are the regions within a city, a town, literally everywhere throughout the 50 states where census data is linked. So they don't link census. They can link census data to an entire state or to an entire county or even an entire city like Boston. But they can get more specific than the city as a whole and give you certain areas of the city, certain districts, they're called tracts, certain tracts of the city. So you can actually get down to the nitty gritty and see where in your city certain foreign-born population is, where in your city population growth is evident, where the higher incomes are located, where certain racial groups live, where the median income is found in the city. So it helps you get more specific and more detailed in your research and your analyzation of a place with the census tracts here. So like in this case, we can see who's foreign born in Boston. What neighborhoods is there a lot of foreign born residents? Like Chinatown has a lot of foreign born residents. East Boston has a lot of foreign born residents. While West Roxbury doesn't have as many foreign born residents. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And we were looking at a city scale of analysis, which is where we're comparing data between cities. Boston would be just one color. New York would be just one color. Atlanta, one color. Seattle would be one color. You can't get more specific than that. But now that we're looking at a more census tract scale of analysis, we can see where in the city the certain populations are located. And this is created through census data. This would be probably a better answer. Local would be a better answer if we were not looking at census data, because then it probably wouldn't be confined to census tracts, because census tracts are linked to census data. Okay, that was a little bit of a mouthful. So these are some sample questions without any stimuli, just to kind of get your brain thinking about what these maps should look like. So what scale of analysis should be used to compare property tax rates within South Carolina? Okay, so let's think for a second. Property tax rates vary between counties. So that's going to be a county scale of analysis, because that's what you would compare them between. All right, the next one. Comparing the number of Muslims between the states in New England. That question had the answer in it. New England is our scale, but state is our scale of analysis, because that's the data we're comparing. That's what we're comparing the data between. Then the next one, analyzing which countries Taylor Swift has been to on her tours. Well, she's been on a world tour, so that's a global scale. And then that's going to vary which countries. That's going to be a country scale of analysis, or you could say national scale of analysis. If you want to get more specific, you could probably say city or regional scale of analysis, subnational scale of analysis. And then the last one, comparing the import-export rate between ports in Florida. Okay, so Florida is our scale. That is a state scale. And then ports are located throughout the peninsula, for one. So are ports linked to a city? Well, a city could have multiple ports. A city could have no ports. And yes, a city could have one port. But what's important is that they could have multiple ports. Like Jacksonville, Florida is the biggest city in the country geographically. So I'm sure they have more than one port in Jacksonville. While smaller areas like Port Charlotte, Florida has a little less, maybe has one, maybe a few more ports than Jacksonville does. So we're probably going to be looking at a more local area here. So that's what I would say is the scale of analysis. Not city, not county, but local. All right, here's a multiple choice question for practice. Which scale of analysis would provide the most detail about population change within Arkansas? All right, so we're looking at a state. So that's subnational state. That's our scale. So we can actually rule out E because that's our scale, not our scale of analysis. The only times that scale of analysis and scale are going to be the same is when they're global. All right, so which provides the most detail? Which one will get down to the nitty-gritty? It would be the most detailed. So is that going to be county or city or regional? Well, regional can be bigger than city because a region can be comprised of multiple cities. So we're probably not going to say it's regional. It's probably not the best answer here because we got a lot more specific responses. All right, now let's compare county and city because sometimes a city is only located in one county, but oftentimes a city can be located over multiple counties. So I don't think it would be city in that case or county in that case because it goes both ways. And then we're left with census tract. Are we dealing with census data? Yes, we're dealing with population change, which is census data. So we can look at individual regions, individual areas within a city and get the most detailed data from a census tract scale of analysis. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really does help me out, and it costs $0. I have some free resources for you in the description down below if you'd like to use them. If you have any AP Human Geography related questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below the video or send me a message on Discord. I'll see you guys in the next video, though. Adios.